Nasawi sa India matapos mahulog ang sinasakyang truck nila sa bangin. Ano naman kaya ang dahilan kung kaya't sinapit nila ang trahedyang ito? Iba pang detalye ng mga balita ibabahagi sa inyo maya-maya. Magandang gabi, ako po si Nina Richie Alagaw Flores at ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Biyernes. 17 Filipino seafarers na binihag ng rebelding Houthi, balik Pinas na. COMELEC sisimula na ang pag-imprenta ng mga balota ng 2025 midterm polls. China, maring kinundi ng US at Pilipinas ukol sa deployment ng Typhoon missile launcher. US President Donald Trump may mahalagang mensahe sa World Economic Forum sa Davos. At Storm Edwin sinalanta ang British Isles. Pinas na ang 17 Pilipinong tripulante ng MV Galaxy Leader na binihag ng mga rebelding Houthi. Pasado alas 9 kagabi nang lumagpag sa Ninoy Aquino International Airport, Terminal 1 Oman Air Flight 843, nalula ng nasabing mga marinong Pinoy. Ayon sa DFA noong November 2023 nang i-hijack ng rebelding grupong Houthi ang mga tripulanteng lulan ng MV Galaxy Leader. Ang pagpapalaya sa mga tripulante ay kasabay din ng tigil putukan ng Israel at Hamas. Nakahanda naman ang Department of Health na mag-abot ng tulong medikal para sa mga pinalayang Pilipinong marino, partikular sa kanilang mental health. Nangako rin ang Department of Migrant Workers o DMW na pagkakalooban nila ng tulong pinansyal, pangkabuhayan at educational and scholarship ang pamilya ng 17 mga Filipino seafarers.
So they will stay there. Besides, hindi naman ang sinasalakay ng Israel or what they're threatening is the nuclear reactor of Iran. We don't expect that Iran and Israel will start firing at civilian targets like a full-scale war. But what I was referring to, we want the war in Gaza to end because it will affect the fate of 17 Filipino seafarers who are still being hostage in Yemen by the Houthi.
Nagtakda ang Philippine Embassy sa Estados Unidos ng 24/7 hotlines para sa mga Pilipino sa US sa gitna ng pagpapatupad ni Pangulong Donald Trump ng isang polisiya kontra sa mga illegal immigrants. Ayon sa Philippine Embassy, lahat ng mga Pilipino sa Estados Unidos ay mayroong karapatan anuman ang kanilang immigration status. Ipagkakaloob ng embahada ang consular services sa lahat ng mga Pilipino sa US sa pamamagitan ng nasabing hotlines. Samantala, sinabi ni Philippine Ambassador to the United States Jose Manuel Romualdez, may 350,000 undocumented Filipinos ang nananatili pa sa Estados Unidos. Sa naging direktiba ni Trump, inaasahan na ang mga illegal na migranteng ito sa US na may criminal records ay madedeport pabalik sa kanilang country of origin. Sisimula muli ng COMELEC ang pag-imprenta ng balota para sa 2025 midterm polls sa araw ng Lunes. Kalinsabay nito, plano ng COMELEC na mag-imprenta ng 1.5 milyong mga balota kada araw para makahabol ang poll body sa mga nasayang na araw kasunod ng temporary restraining order na ibinaba ng Korte Suprema. Ayon kay COMELEC Chairperson George Garcia, handa nang gagamitin nilang printers sa National Printing Office, gayon din ang 2 bagong Miro machines para matugunan ang 1.5 million production capacity. Ongoing na rin ang adjustment sa database ng mga kandidato at ang pag-generate ng bagong ballot faces. Sa kabila nito, hinimok naman ni Garcia ang iba pang kandidato na nagpaplanong umurong na gawin ito hanggang ngayong Biyernes para bigyang daan naman ang updating ng mukha ng bagong balota bago ang reprinting ng mga ito sa Lunes. Isa itong araw na hindi malilimutan ng 3,962 examinees na pumasa sa 2024 bar examinations. Dahil sa wakas, ganap na silang mga abogado at abogada matapos silang makapanumpa at makapirma sa Roll of Attorneys ngayong Biyernes, January 24. Ang oath-taking at signing of the Roll of Attorneys ay ginanap alas 10 ng umaga sa SMX Convention Center sa Pasay City. Si Supreme Court Clerk of Court Bank Attorney Marife Cuevas ang nagpanumpa sa mga bagong abogado. Hinikayat ni 2024 Bar Chairperson and Associate Justice Mario Lopez ang mga bagong abogado na manatiling mapagpakumbaba, mas maging mabuting tao at maglingkod sa mga mamamayang Pilipino. Mahalagaan niya na taglayin ng mga abogado ang mga katangian ito upang maging morally competent.
Do solemnly swear that I accept the honor, privilege, duty and responsibility of practicing law in the Philippines as an officer of the court in the interest of our people. Let us all give a warm round of applause to our new lawyers. Congratulations.
It embodies education, technology, humility, integrity, compassion, and service. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the hallmark of a morally competent lawyer, or should I say, MVL, morally valuable lawyer. It takes ethics to be an MVL, because a lawyer who values education and technology, humility, integrity, compassion, and service is the kind of lawyer that the people deserve and expect from Bar ni J.
Isa sa mga nanumpa si Attorney Alan Gutierrez Jr. na nagtapos ng abogasya sa New Era University. Masaya niyang ibinalita na napromote siya sa kanyang trabaho matapos pumasa sa bar exams. Excited naman si Attorney Luigi De Vera at Attorney Shiva Ashley Fernandez na simulan ang kanilang lawyering journey at makatulong sa publiko.
Saya syempre, lalo na't nakapasa ako at saka para din sa magulang ko at saka sa asawa ko. So ngayon, currently, I was promoted as legal officer sa current employer ko. So I'll be practicing corporate law.
Very grateful po for natutupad din finally yung pangarap namin na maging abogado. Ngayon po, meron po apply na po ako sa mga law firms and may offer po ako sa isang law firm po ngayon.
Since abogado na po ako, it's still surreal till now. It takes time to take it all in. So, since ngayon pa lang po talaga ako magkakaroon ng work, so it's a big challenge also for new lawyers.
Nagbigay din ng mensahe si 2025 Bar Exams Chair at Supreme Court Justice Lazaro Javier sa mga bagong abogado na masanay na mabuti at manatiling mapagpakumbaba at matulunging tao.
May you always strive to be the best lawyers and humans you can be. Never lose your ideals. Carefully choose your learnings, the people you emulate. Train hard and give back to the people, the community, and the public whenever there is an opportunity. Passing the bar is a gift, and now you have been gifted to give.
Good news sa mga motorista dahil matapos ang 3 linggong sunod-sunod na taas sa presyo sa produktong petrolyo ay sasalubong naman ang fuel price rollback next week. Ayon sa Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau, posibleng bumaba ng 70 hanggang piso ang presyo sa kada litro ng gasolina. 20 hanggang 55 sentimos naman ang bawas sa presyo ng kada litro sa diesel, habang 40 hanggang 50 sentimos naman ang bawas sa kada litro ng kerosene. Susunod, redeployment ng US Typhoon missile launcher sa Pilipinas, pinalagan ng China. Ilang miyembro ng European Parliament naggagalaiti sa sinabi ni US President Donald Trump. At President Trump nagbigay ng speech sa World Economic Forum sa Davos, Switzerland. Iba pang detalye ng mga balita sa pagbabalik ng mata ng Agila International.
Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. Mailalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Tinawag na mapanganib ang ginawang pagpapadala ng Estados Unidos ng Typhoon missile launcher sa panibagong lokasyon sa Pilipinas.
关于美国在菲律宾部署中岛，中方已经多次阐明了坚决反对的严正立场。我想再次强调，菲方引入中岛系统这一战略性、进攻性武器，制造地区紧张对立、挑动地缘对抗和军备竞赛，是非常危险的举动，也是对本国和东南亚各国人民、对地区安全极不负责任的选择。
Umani ng batikos mula sa China ang deployment ng naturang weapon system sa Pilipinas. Binalaan ni Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson ng Estados Unidos na posibleng maghimok ng karagdagang engkwentro ang pagdestino ng missile system sa naturang bagong lokasyon. Nakikita ang naturang paglilipat ng Typhoon missile launcher bilang isang paraan para gawing mas survivable ito sa oras ng digmaan. Kinundena naman ito ng China kung saan sinabi nilang napaka-irresponsable ng naging desisyon ng United States Indo-Pacific Command o INDOPACOM. Sa kabila ng panawagang iatras na ng INDOPACOM ang kanilang weapon systems, ay hinikayat din ni Mauning na makinig sa international community ang Pilipinas.
我们再次敦促菲方正视地区国家和人民的呼声，尽早纠正错误做法，按此前公开承诺，尽快撤走低风中岛系统，不要在错误的道路上越走越远。
Tinapos naman niya ito kung saan sinabi niyang walang karapatan ng Estados Unidos na manghimasok sa usapin ng West Philippine Sea. At tinudyok nito ang Washington na huwag makialam sa relasyon ng China at Pilipinas.
中国在有关海域的活动合理合法，无可非议。美国不是南海问题的当事方， 也无权介入中非两国之间的涉海问题。美菲军事合作不得损害中方在南海的主权和海洋权益，更不能以此为菲律宾的非法主张背书。中方将继续采取必要措施，坚定捍卫自身领土主权和海洋权益，维护南海的和平稳定。
Sa isang pagtitipon ng European Parliament ay pinahayag ni Danish MP Anders Vistisen ang kanyang panggagalaiti sa isang tahasang mensahe kay US President Donald Trump.
Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland have been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale. Let me put it in words you might understand, Mr. Trump.
Nagsimula ang isyong ito matapos ang kontrobersyal na mungkahi ni Trump na nagsabing ang pagmamay-ari ng Estados Unidos sa Greenland ay isang absolute necessity at nagbanta na gagamit ng puwersang militar o economic force ang kanyang bansa upang makuha ito. Ipaniliwanag ng Denmark na ang hinaharap ng Greenland ay nasa mga kamay ng mga tao nito, kung saan sinabi ng Greenlandic Parliament Chairman na si Mate Egede na hindi for sale ang Greenland. Ang patuloy na kontribusyon ng Greenland sa seguridad ng Estados Unidos, lalo na sa pamamagitan ng kanilang ugnayan sa North Atlantic Treaty Organization o NATO, pati na rin ang kahalagahan ng Greenland sa seguridad sa Arctic. Ginatungan naman ni Spanish MP Laura Bayarin Cereza ang mensahe ni Anders, kung saan sinabi niyang pinahahalagahan din nila ang freedom of speech ng kanilang mga mamamayan sa tamang paraan, kung saan tinutukoy niya ang pambabaraso na ginawa ng mga malalaking negosyante sa mga politiko gamit ang kanilang kayamanan at korporasyon.
And to Musk, Zuckerberg and company. In Europe, we have a market of millions of users that provide money to your companies. Yes, but we also love protecting our citizens and democracies by making laws. If you don't like it, you can always leave and take it or leave it. You can always take your Nazi salutes and your masculine energy and go back home. Viva Europa, hoy más que nunca. Muchas gracias.
Target ngayon ng International Criminal Court o ICC na magpalabas ng warrant of arrest laban sa mga lider ng Taliban.
After a period of deferral, my office has been independently and impartially examining alleged crimes committed against Afghan civilians. After a thorough investigation, and on the basis of evidence collected, my office submits that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the supreme leader of the Taliban, Haibatullah Akhundzada, and the Chief Justice of the so-called Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, Abdul Hakim Haqqani, bear criminal responsibility for the crime against humanity of persecution on gender grounds under Article 71H of the Rome Statute.
Ito ay dahil sa gender-based crimes matapos pagkaita ng karapatan ang mga kababaihan ng Afghanistan. Ayon kay ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan, mayroon silang sapat na ebidensya para sa pag-aresto laban kay Haibatullah Akhundzada, ang Supreme Leader ng Taliban, at Abdul Hakim Haqqani, ang Chief Justice of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. Lumabas din sa kanilang pag-imbestigan ang mga lumalabag na mga kababaihan sa ipinatutupad nilang batas ay kanilang ikinukulong, ginagahasa at kuminsan ay pinapatay. Ang aplikasyon ng arrest warrants ng ICC prosecutors ay kailangan pang aprubahan ng judge. Magugunitang mula ng pamunuan ng Taliban ng Afghanistan noong August 2021 ay hinigpitan ang tungkulin ng mga kababaihan sa publiko. Ilan sa mga pinagbawalan sa mga kababaihan ay ang pumasok sa universidad, magtungo sa mga beauty salons at magtrabaho sa mga non-government organizations, kasama na rito ang United Nations.
My office has concluded that these two Afghan nationals are criminally responsible for persecuting Afghan girls and women, as well as persons whom the Taliban perceived are not conforming with their ideological expectations of gender identity or expression, and persons whom the Taliban perceived as allies of girls and women.
Humarap sa taunang World Economic Forum sa Davos, Switzerland si Papua New Guinea Prime Minister James Marape. Doon ipinagmalaki ni Marape ang likas na yaman ng kanyang bansa at kung paanong iingatan ito ng kanilang mga mamamayan. Narito ang report ni NET25 correspondent Eco Hortaleza Quinola.
Isa si Prime Minister James Marape sa mga naging tagapagsalita sa World Economic Forum annual meeting na inorganisa ng New York Times on Trade and Climate Change. Tinalakay ni Marape ang paksang financing of protection and conservation of natural resources. Isinaad nito na may halong pagmamalaki ang bansang Papua New Guinea na mayaman anya sa biodiversity, tropical rainforest at marine resources. Sa katunayan, isa ang Papua New Guinea sa mga bansang may malawak na rainforest na umaabot sa mahigit 73 milyong ektarya. Ibinida ni Marape ang paghanga ng mga pribado at publikong sektor sa husay ng global financing system na binuo ng kanyang gobyerno gamit ang likas na yaman ng bansa.
And so the world out there needs to see forest resources, biodiversity, marine resources are global assets that is kept in different parts of our society, mostly in pockets of indigenous society. Resources needs to be mobilized so that these resources are preserved.
Inimbitahan din niya ang iba pang mga dumalo sa pagpupulong na dalawin at tuklasin ang natural conservation at iba pang bagay na mayroon ang Papua New Guinea. Samantala, dinaluhan din ni Marape ang panunumpa ni Palau President-elect Sorangel Whips Jr. Nagkaroon ng bilateral meeting ang dalawang pangulo, layon ang mas matibay na ugnayan sa turismo, kultura at kasaysayan. Gayon din ang Regional Fisheries Cooperation at Strategic Partnership for Development.
Mula sa Fort Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eco Hortaleza Quinola para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Sa isang virtual message naman ay kinausap ni US President Donald Trump ang mga trade leaders sa World Economic Forum sa Davos, Switzerland. Sinabi ng bagong Pangulo na balak nitong pababain ang inflation, wakasan ang illegal immigration at bawasan ang presyo ng langis sa pandaigdigang merkado. Si Ana Cui para sa report.
Sa taunang World Economic Forum ng business leaders na ginanap ngayong taon sa Davos, Switzerland, nagbigay ng virtual na mensahe si Pangulong Donald Trump. Ayon kay Trump, babawiin ng kanyang administrasyon ang ipinatalo ng nakaraang pamahalaan ng bansa. Kasama sa tatrabahuhin anya ng kanyang gobyerno ay ang pagpapababa ng inflation at paglaban sa illegal na imigrasyon.
The inflation rate we are inheriting remains 50% higher than the historic target. It was the highest inflation probably in the history of our country. That's why from the moment I took office, I've taken rapid action to reverse each and every one of these radical left policies that created this calamity, in particular with immigration, crime, and inflation.
Pinanggit din ni Trump ang pagpapalakas ng produksyon ng fossil fuels sa bansa.
I declared a national energy emergency, and it's so important, national energy emergency to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure. The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto.
Pinangalanan ni Trump kung ano ang nasaksihan ng mundo nitong nakaraang 3 araw sa sandaling nanumpa siya bilang Pangulo ng US.
What the world has witnessed in the past 72 hours is nothing less than a revolution of common sense. Our country will soon be stronger, wealthier, and more united than ever before, and the entire planet will be more peaceful and prosperous as a result of this incredible momentum and what we're doing and going to do.
Inipitahan ng US President ang business leaders na mamuhunan sa Estados Unidos, dalhin ang produksyon sa bansa at ipinangakong bibigyan ang mga ito ng malaking kaltas sa buwis.
To further unleash our economy, our majorities in the House and Senate, which we also took along with the presidency, are going to pass the largest tax cut in American history, including massive tax cuts for workers and family, and big tax cuts for domestic producers and manufacturers. And we're working with the Democrats on getting an extension of the original Trump tax cuts, as you probably know, by just reading any paper. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. We're bringing them down very substantially, even from the original Trump tax cuts. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA.
Samantala, sinabi rin ni Trump na nais niyang bawasan ang presyo ng langis sa buong mundo. Anya, makikipag-ugnayan siya sa Saudi Arabia ukol dito.
And it's also reported today in the papers that Saudi Arabia will be investing at least $600 billion in America, but I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around $1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love by them not doing it. I was a little surprised by that. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that that war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price. You got to end that war. They should have done it long ago. They're very responsible, actually, to a certain extent for what's taking place. Millions of lives are being lost.
Pinatamaan ni Trump ang dati-rati mga kaalyado ng US, ang Canada at European Union. Binantaan niya ang mga ito ng panibagong taripa. Tinuligsa rin ni Trump ang mga tuntunin ng mga ito pagdating sa pag-i-import.
One thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years. And it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
Inatake ni Trump ang EU at sinabing hindi maganda ang ginawang pagtrato nito sa US.
From the standpoint of America, the EU treats us very, very unfairly, very badly. They have a large tax that we know about, and a VAT tax, and it's a very substantial one.
Subalit ayon kay Trump, mahal niya ang Europe at kailangan lamang anya nitong bilisan at ayusin ang kilos pagdating sa pangangalakal sa US.
Hundreds of billions of dollars of deficits with the EU, and nobody's happy with it, and we're going to do something about it, but nobody's happy with it. So I think the EU has to speed up their process. Friends of mine that are in some of the nations within the EU, great people, they want to be able to compete better, and you can't compete when you can't go through the approval process fast. There's no reason why it can't go faster. So, you know, I'm trying to be constructive because I love Europe. I love the countries of Europe, but the process is a very cumbersome one, and they do treat the United States of America very, very unfairly with the VAT taxes and all of the other taxes they impose.
Higit sa 1,000 executives at mga opisyal mula sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo ang nakapakinig sa talumpati ni Trump. Kabilang sa mga ito, sina dating US State Secretary John Kerry at Polish President Andrzej Duda. Naghiyawan ang mga tao nang ipinakitang mukha ni Trump sa big screen. Ana Cui para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Matapos magsalita ni US President Donald Trump sa World Economic Forum sa Davos, Switzerland, samut-sari ang naging reaksyon ng mga delegado. Narito ang report ni NJ de Guzman.
Humarap ng virtual si Pangulong Donald Trump sa mga leader ng kalakalan sa taunang World Economic Forum sa Switzerland. Nagpahayag ng kanilang reaksyon ang ilang mga dumalo at nakapakinig. Ayon kay Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Callamard, sa kabila ng pananaw ni Trump, kulang ang pananaw nito para sa buong mundo.
Il n'a pas de vision pour le reste du monde. Il a une vision américaine qui est très forte et je comprends pourquoi les Américains votent pour lui. C'est une vision de America First, les travailleurs d'abord, les banques américaines d'abord, les investissements américains d'abord, etc., etc. Mais à l'échelle planétaire, tout ça ne va pas permettre la stabilité, ça ne va que renforcer les inégalités et l'insécurité. Donc le monde, le manque, l'absence complète de vision pour le reste du monde, elle est choquante.
Dagdag ni Callamard, magiging mapanubok ang darating na 4 na taon para sa marami.
Une partie du discours, on l'avait déjà entendu pendant le discours d'inauguration. Donc là, il a réitéré ce qu'il nous avait dit. Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Que pour les Américains, particulièrement pour les plus vulnérables, les 4 années à venir vont être extrêmement difficiles, que ce soit pour les migrants, pour les transgenres, pour la dissidence politique, je dirais. Les attaques contre la liberté d'expression au nom de la liberté d'expression nous font bien rire. Il s'agit bien d'une attaque contre les droits civils et politiques, y compris contre les institutions judiciaires.
Ayon naman kay dating US Ambassador to the European Union, Stuart E. Eisenstadt, ang magkaroon ng 100 executive orders sa loob lamang ng 2.5 buwan ay nagpapakitang handa si Trump.
Première impression, la réalité dépasse la caricature en fait, avec Trump. On s'y attendait évidemment, mais il fait ça de manière tellement culottée, à une telle vitesse qu'on est tous un peu débordés, on est tous, je crois, un petit peu en état de choc. Donc les gens riaient parce qu'il utilise l'humour, et les populistes savent utiliser l'humour, mais derrière cet humour, il y avait des menaces, beaucoup de menaces, notamment envers l'Union européenne, et tous les gens qui ne vont pas faire des affaires avec les États-Unis. Donc il a mis tout le monde en garde aujourd'hui.
Sinabi naman ni Swiss cartoonist Patrick Chapat pagkatapos ng talumpati ni Trump na para sa Pangulo, ang realidad ay lampas sa karikatura.
With Trump 1.0, he didn't expect to be elected. He didn't have loyalists. Now he's got people who are loyalists. That's what they're chosen for. He's going to get much more cooperation within his executive branch. He's got a Republican Congress, House and Senate, and he's obviously well prepared. I mean, it's remarkable. You have to understand, we have a 2.5-month transition. To be able to have 100 executive orders ready in 2.5 months is extraordinary. So he's ready. He's got a much more loyal group than his first term. And that may be better or worse depending on what you think about his policies, but they're going to be there.
Sinabi ni Trump na tinatrabaho nito ang paglaban sa inflation at illegal migration habang isinusulong naman ang fossil fuel production sa Estados Unidos. Dagdag ni Trump, tinatrato ng napakasama ng European Union ang US kung kaya'y mahirap magpasok ng mga produkto sa Europa. NJ De Guzman para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Nanawagan ng United Nations para sa $910 million fund upang matugunan ang humanitarian crisis sa northeastern Nigeria. Nasa ilalim nilang naturang lugar sa isang Islamist insurgency mula pa noong 2009 at kamakailan ay sinalanta naman ito ng matinding pagbaha. Si Rose Papa Angeles para sa balita.
$910 million ang estima ng United Nations na kakailanganing pondo upang matulungan ng hilagang silangang Nigeria. Dumaranas ito ng matinding krisis pang sangkatauhan dahil sa insurhensya mula pa noong 2009. Pinahari ng lugar noong nakaraang taon na dumagdag sa ininda ng mga residente roon. Patay sa mga dokumentong ipinakita ni UN Resident and Humanitarian Coordinator Mohammed Fall, may 7.8 milyon na mga tao ang nangangailangan sa 3 estado ng Northeast Nigeria: Adamawa, Borno at Yobe.
In Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe, the 2025
Humanitarian needs and response plan aim to provide life-saving to 3.6 million out of the 7.8 million requiring urgent assistance, with the financial requirement of 900 million. And the HNRP will prioritize in its focus women, children, and people with disability.
Sinabi na noon ng UN na ang Northeast Nigeria ay nagbabadyang maging napabayaang krisis. Ito ay dahil na-focus ang atensyon sa krisis sa Ukraine, Gaza at Sudan nitong mga nakaraang taon. Batay sa isang report noong Nobyembre, humaharap ang Nigeria sa pinakamalalang krisis ng pagkagutom at tinatayang nasa 30 milyong katao ang gugutumin ng matindi ngayong taon. Dagdag dito, nagdaranas din ang Nigeria sa krisis ng presyo ng bilihin. Tumaas na ng husto ang inflation sa lugar sa loob ng 3 dekada. Ayon sa hepe ng UN Office for the Coordinator of Humanitarian Affairs na si Tran Jensen, marami sa mga kaalyado ng ahensya ang nawawala kung kaya't kailangang suriing mabuti kung sino-sino ang tutulungan at makahanap din ng ibang pagkukunan ng pondo.
It cannot be business as usual because the money is not there. We see many of our international partners disappearing. On the positive side, we see the strengthening of local partners. We see an increasing number of Nigerian national partners, but also local partners. But it also means that we have to make difficult decisions in terms of who we provide assistance to. In terms of simply, we cannot provide assistance to everyone who is in need, but we also, and this is the other side, it's not about just becoming more efficient, but also finding then alternative sources of funding.
Isinisisi ang paghihirap ng bansa sa mga reformang pang-ekonomiya ni Pangulong Bola Tinubu, kasama ang pagtatanggal ng fuel subsidy at foreign exchange controls. Subalit ayon kay Tinubu, ang mga reformang ito ay maglalagay sa ekonomiya sa mas matatag na daan pasulong. Rose Papa Angeles para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
5 araw matapos pagtibayin ng Israel ang ceasefire deal, nasa 653 mga truck ng humanitarian aid ang tuloy-tuloy na nakapasok sa Gaza Strip. Si Marjorie Quintos para sa mga detalye.
Noong Martes sa ika-5 araw ng pagpapatupad ng truce deal sa Gaza, may nakapasok na namang 653 truck ng tulong sa Gaza. Ito ay ayon sa United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs o OCHA. Ibinahagi ng ahensya ang impormasyong nakuha nito mula sa Israeli authorities at sa mga guarantor ng ceasefire agreement, ang Estados Unidos, Egypt at Qatar. Ayon din sa OCHA, dagsadagsang tulong ang dumadaloy ngayon sa Gaza na dumadaan sa Erez at Zikim Crossing sa Hilaga at sa Kerem Shalom Crossing naman sa Timog. Ayon kay UN Deputy Spokesperson Farhan Haq, itunuloy na ng partners ng ahensya sa Central at Southern Gaza ang pamamahagi ng buwanang pagkain na buo ang rasyon.
In Central and Southern Gaza, partners have resumed monthly food distributions with full rations. Yesterday, humanitarian organizations on the ground in Gaza transported 118 trucks of food parcels and flour from UNRWA warehouses to more than 60 distribution points in the south. Across southern Gaza, UNICEF continues dispatching high-energy biscuits and ready-to-use food, enough for thousands of infants. While food items currently account for the bulk of supplies that have entered the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire took effect, more medicines, shelter materials, and water, sanitation, and hygiene supplies are expected over the coming days.
Dagdag ni Haq, umaabot na rin ang aid cargo at humanitarian personnel sa mga lugar na hindi mapuntahan dati.
The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reports that large volumes of humanitarian aid continue to enter Gaza through the Erez and Zikim crossings in the north and Kerem Shalom crossing in the south. Inside Gaza, OCHA says that aid cargo and humanitarian personnel are moving into areas that were previously hard to reach. Our humanitarian partners on the ground say the operating environment has improved significantly. The surge in supplies entering Gaza each day and the return of law and order has allowed aid organizations to scale up the delivery of life-saving assistance and services.
Gayon din, Nakapamahagi na rin anya ang partners ng ahensya ng medical disposables at trauma management kits sa 14 na ospital, sexual and reproductive health kits sa 28 health facilities na sapat sa 58,000 na mga tao. Samantala, patuloy rin ang pagde-deliver ng langis sa Central at Southern Gaza na nagpapatakbo sa mga balon ng tubig, desalination plants at sewage pumps. Anihak, 7 truck ng gasolina ang inihatid sa Hilagang Gaza, kauna-unahan mula nang ipatupad ang tigil putukan. Anya, mapapatakbo nito ang backup generators na kailangan upang makapag-opera ng critical na humanitarian services ng UNRWA, World Food Program, World Health Organization at iba pa. Samantala, sa kabila nito, binanggit din ni Hak ang mga suliraning kinakaharap pa rin ng teritoryo gayon din ng West Bank.
In Gaza City yesterday, 2 of UNRWA's primary health service points reopened, the Beach Health Center and Daraj Medical Point. Across the Strip, OCHA reports that most Palestinians remain at displacement sites, either because their homes are in ruins or contaminated by explosive ordnance, or because movement back to northern Gaza has not yet been allowed. And turning to the situation in the West Bank, OCHA reports that the Jenin Government Hospital remains disconnected from water and electricity, and access is extremely difficult due to road damage. The facility is relying on dwindling water reserves from emergency tanks installed just weeks ago through an allocation by the Occupied Palestinian Territory Humanitarian Fund, which is managed by OCHA.
Marjorie Quintos para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
2 araw matapos ang inaugurasyon ni US President Donald Trump, nagpahayag ang Mexico ng hindi pagsang-ayon na tanggapin sa kanilang bansa ang mga non-Mexican asylum seekers mula sa Estados Unidos. Si Anjo Milano para sa mga detalye.
Noong Miyerkules, nanindigan si Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum na hindi ayon ang kanyang bansa na tanggapin sa Mexico ang mga migranteng asylum seekers sa US na hindi Meksikano. Ito ay matapos i-anunsyo ni Pangulong Donald Trump ang pagbabalik ng programa ukol dito. Noong Martes, ipinahayag ng bagong Trump administration na ibabalik nito ang Remain in Mexico program. Ito ay kilala noon bilang formally Migrant Protection Protocols na nagtutulak sa non-Mexican asylum seekers na sa Mexico mag-antay ng desisyon ng kanilang kaso. Ani Sheinbaum, para magpatuloy ito, kailangan munang sumang-ayon ang bansang tatanggap na anya hindi pa nila ginagawa.
Para que haya un acuerdo de tercer país tiene que haber una firma del país que es digamos bilateral. Y nosotros en este caso lo que estamos diciendo, si hay una persona que está en la frontera norte, entonces les ofrece pues obviamente una atención humanitaria y si de manera voluntaria quieren regresar a sus países, existen mecanismos que existían con la administración Biden en su momento para poder ser repatriados a partir de recursos que se establecían a través de organizaciones.
Dagdag ni Sheinbaum, alok ng kanyang gobyerno ang humanitarian assistance para sa deported migrants ng ibang bansa. Kasama nito ang mga mekanismo na maibalik sila sakaling nais nilang umuwi sa kani-kanilang mga bansa. Nangako si Trump na ipatutupad ang agresibong mga tuntunin sa imigrasyon kabilang ang pagdedeklara ng national emergency sa katimugang border ng US. Ito ay sa kabila ng kapansin-pansing pagbaba ng bilang ng mga tumatawid noong nakaraang taon. Umalma ang human rights advocates laban sa tuntunin at sinabing inilalagay nito sa peligro ang mga migrante sa pagpapatira sa kanila sa border encampments kung saan talamak ang organized crime. Samantala, sinabi ni Sheinbaum na nag-uusap sa telepono ang Foreign Minister ng Mexico at ang bagong US State Secretary na si Marco Rubio.
El canciller Juan Ramón de la Fuente con el secretario de Estado Rubio iniciaron ya las conversaciones. Fue una muy buena conversación, muy cordial. Se habló de temas de migración, de temas de seguridad. Y a partir del día de ayer pues inician ya estas conversaciones, que es muy importante que todos lo sepan.
Anjo Milano para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Nakalaya na rin ang dating leader ng Proud Boys na si Enrique Torrio matapos bigyan ng pardon ni US President Donald Trump. Kasama si Torrio sa mga nakasuhan dahil sa umano'y panunugod sa US Capitol noong Enero 6, taong 2021. Si Asti Sakmar para sa balita.
Nakabalik na sa kanyang tahanan sa Miami, Florida ang dating leader ng Proud Boys na si Enrique Torrio. Ito ay matapos siyang tumanggap din ng pardon mula kay Pangulong Donald Trump. Nag-issue ang bagong presidente ng maramihang grant of clemency o pagpapatawad sa halos 1,600 mga tao na kinasuhan kaugnay ng January 6 Capitol attack. Kasama sa mga pinardon ang 300 umamin sa kanilang aksyon, kabilang ang pananakit o panghaharang sa opisyal ng batas. Pati na ang 69 na umaming nanakit ng pulis gamit ang mapanganib o nakamamatay na sandata. Sinintensyahan si Torrio ng 22 taong pagkabilanggo dahil sa kasong seditious conspiracy. Ang Proud Boys ay kilala bilang isang marahas na all-male extremist group. Bago ang eleksyon noong 2020, sinabihan ni Trump ang Proud Boys na mag-antabay. Ngayong nakalaya na si Torrio, masaya siyang sinalubong ng mga kagrupo na naniniwalang mapayapang pag-alma ang naganap noong 6 ng Enero 2021. Ashley Sakmar para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Susunod, British Isles naghahanda para sa tropical storm Eowyn. Bank of Japan nagtaas ng interest rates matapos ang 17 taon. At US President Donald Trump gumawa ng technical working group para sa cryptocurrency regulation. Yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Ang may-ari ng bankrupt na business versus isang rich boy investor. Kaya ba nilang mag-rise to success? Rising with the Wind. Abangan sa Pebrero. Dito lang sa NET25.
Let's net together. Mata ng Agila Weekend tuwing Sabado, alas 4 ng hapon. Ito ang NET25. Matatag, matapag, matapak. Let's net together sa NET25. Sa NET25.
Suspendido na po ang lahat ng mga flights sa mga paliparan, gayon din ang pasok sa mga paaralan dahil sa malakas na hanging umiihip sa ilang bahagi ng United Kingdom at Ireland bunsod ng bagyong Eowyn. Ayon sa Met Office, inaasahang magiging pinakamalakas na bagyong tumama sa rehiyon ang Storm Eowyn. Ngayong Biyernes nga, higit sa 560,000 na mga gusali ang nawala ng kuryente dahil sa lakas ng ulan. Ang Storm Eowyn ay isang extratropical bomb cyclone na namuo sa North Atlantic at aabot ang lakas ng hangin nito sa 100 miles per hour. Pinayuhan ng Met Office ang publiko na manatili sa kani-kanilang mga tahanan at lumabas lamang kung sadyang kinakailangan. Ikinasawi ng 10 katao habang sugatan ng higit sa 17 iba pa matapos mahulog ang isang truck sa India sa bangin. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, naganap ang trahedya sa kalsada malapit sa Gulapur Village. Nahulog nila ang gulong ng truck sa butas kaya tumaob ito at nahulog sa bangin. Tutungo sana ang mga biktima sa Kumta Market mula sa Vanur para magbenta ng kanilang panindang gulay. Hinihinala ng pulis na higit sa 30 katao ang sakay ng truck bago naganap ang insidente. Agad namang dinala ang nakaligtas na okupante ng truck sa pinakamalapit na pagamutan. Isang Pinay na turista ang nakaligtas sa bingit ng kamatayan matapos madali ng tren. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, bumisita ang Pinay na kilala sa tawag na Michelle sa Chief and Old Street sa Taipei nang napagdesisyonan nito na mag-post para sa isang selfie. Pero hindi niya napansin na may paparating na kulay dilaw na tren sa gilid niya. Dito na siya nahagip at nahulog mula sa platform. Buti na lamang ay nasa pinakagilid ng tracks siya napunta. Nagtamo naman ang Pinay ng galos sa ulo at ibang bahagi ng katawan. Dahil sa ginawang kilos ng Pinay ay pinatawan siya ng sanctions ng Taiwan Railway Police Bureau dahil sa trespassing sa mga tracks. Nagtaas ng interest rates na 0.25% hanggang 0.5% ang Bank of Japan ngayong Biyernes, January 24. Ito ang pinakamataas na cost of borrowing ng Bank of Japan sa loob ng 17 taon. Sa kabila nito ay kumpiyansa naman ng State Bank na mananatiling stable ang inflation ng 2% dahil sa pagtaas ng sahod. Ayon sa ilang mga ekonomista, bahagi ito ng fiscal policy ng Japan dahil sa nakaambang Trump tariffs. Dahil sa matinding dedikasyon at pagbibigay ng maayos na serbisyo sa publiko, lalo pang lumago ang kumpanyang Welcome Depot at umabot na ito sa 100 ang kanilang branches o tindahan. Sa gitna nito, pinasasalamatan naman ng kumpanya ang kontribusyon ng kanilang mga empleyado. Si Mark De La Rosa para sa balita.
Sa halos 5 dekada ng serbisyo sa bawat pamilyang Pilipino, muling pinatunayan ng Welcome Depot na sila'y isang haligi ng industriya sa construction at home improvement sa Pilipinas.
Congratulations! The 100th store of Welcome Depot nationwide and the...
Ipinagdiwang ng kumpanya ang 2 makasaysayang selebrasyon na nagpapakita ng kanilang dedikasyon at walang sawang suporta sa ating mga kababayan.
We mark an important chapter for Welcome Depot as we celebrate reaching 100 stores.
Nagkaroon kami ng 100 tindahan at 48 years na rin ang aming kumpanya. So talagang malaking pasasalamat namin. Ako at on behalf also of our Wilcon family.
Ang mga pagdiriwang na ito ay hindi lamang tungkol sa mga numero. Ito ay kwento ng bawat empleyado, supplier at customer na naging bahagi ng tagumpay ng Welcome Depot.
So sa aming mga empleyado, we are grateful as our chairman says na ang employees namin, ang tao ng Wilcon, talaga ang it's our greatest asset. Siya talaga yung #1 resource namin. For our customers, syempre we are very grateful that you continue to partner with us, you continue to support us. And in turn, of course, gusto namin maging authentic, na maging honest kami sa value na binibigay namin sa customers. And of course, our partners, our suppliers, and all the industry partners of where we belong to.
48 taon ng Welcome Depot. Isa itong patunay ng kanilang pangako na dalhin ang dekalidad na produkto at serbisyo sa mas maraming Pilipino.
Join us to many more years, many more stores, many more milestones. 100 na ang Wilcon. 100 pang Wilcon. Isa lang ang daan, Wilcon.
Mark De La Rosa, para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Patindi ng patindi ang excitement habang papalapit naman ang papalapit ang itinakdang petsa para sa gaganaping Grand Beanieverse, the repeat ng Nation Group na Beanie. Mangyayari ito sa largest indoor arena sa buong mundo, ang Philippine Arena, sa February 15, 2025. Ang ticket prices para sa kanilang one-night concert, ang concert tickets ay magsisimula po sa 1,800 pesos hanggang 11,800 pesos. Ang pagbili ng tickets ay nagsimula na noong December 28 pa via Pop Tickets Online. After naman ang kanilang Philippine Arena stop, the 8-piece group will embark on their first ever world tour with stops in Singapore, Dubai, London, and the United States, among others. Nakatakda na ring mag-release ang Beanie ng kanilang bagong single na Blink Twice ngayong taon. Nakaraang taon ang kilalanin ng Beanie bilang isa sa top streamed artists sa Spotify Philippines. Nagwagi rin ang nasabing P-pop sensation bilang International Breakthrough Artists at International Video of the Year para sa kanilang Cherry on Top single sa Breakthrough Awards 2024 sa Brazil at kinilala bilang Best Asia Act sa 2024 MTV Europe Music Awards. Tandaang laging narito po kami para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako ng mundo. Muli ako po si Nina Richie Alago Flores na bumabati po ng isang mapagpalang weekend sa inyong lahat. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman po sa mga iba pang balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. 17 Filipino seafarers have safely returned home after being held hostage by Houthi rebels in Yemen for over a year. Southeast Asian cities are making headlines for their severe air pollution. And according to air monitoring organization IQ Air, Ho Chi Minh City ranked as the second most polluted city globally today, with Phnom Penh in 4th place and Bangkok in 5th. Southern California is facing yet another wave of wildfires with at least 8 blazes currently burning. Record high winds from Storm Yoan battered Ireland and Northern Ireland today, leaving 560,000 homes and businesses without power. Meanwhile, in a significant move, Donald Trump's second term seems to be starting on a positive note for China, and so far he hasn't followed through on his threat to impose steep tariffs on the country.
One very big power over China, and that's tariffs. And they don't want them, and I'd rather not have to use it.
NET25 World News starts now. Seventeen Filipino seafarers have safely returned home after being held hostage by Houthi rebels in Yemen for over a year.
Maraming salamat po, Secretary Bautista, Secretaries and Undersecretaries. Hindi po biro yung 428 days, 428 araw. Mas alam po ng ating mga kasamahan sa DFA, sa DMW kung ano po yun. Ang pakay po ng DOH is mula sa kalinga ng pamahalaan sa labas ng bansa na binigay ng ating DFA sa pagsaklolo nila at ng DMW sa paglipad, pagpasok ng DOTR, tuloy po yung utos ng ating Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Kami naman po, alagaan natin yung mga kababayan natin ngayong nandito na sila sa lupa ng ating bansa. At ang pag-alaga sa kanila ay hindi lamang doon sa kanilang medical o physical na katawan dahil kanina po may i-validate namin, we heard na some of them are symptomatic for some infections, not serious, but a lot of things can happen in 428 days. We don't even know if they had access to medical services while they were in captivity. Mangyayari in the next few days, meron ho tayong mga psychiatrist mula sa National Center for Mental Health na with the consent of the seafarers ay nagkakaroon po ng psychological debriefing. It doesn't stop there. Pagkatapos po niyan bilang mga repatriates, sila po ay sagot ng pamahalaan sa anumang pangangailangan na kanilang pagka-ospital.
The crew of the MV Galaxy Leader, seized in November 2023, landed at Ninoy Aquino International Airport Thursday night on a flight from Muscat, Oman. Government officials, including the Department of Migrant Workers and Foreign Affairs, welcomed the seafarers and facilitated their reunion with families. An immediate debriefing was conducted to support their transition home. And this marks the end of a challenging year-long ordeal for the maritime workers and their loved ones.
We just want to confirm that they have arrived safe and sound. Napakabilis na turnover sa atin only yesterday in Oman to the auspices of the Philippine Embassy in Muscat. It was an all-of-government approach. I'd like to thank the DMW headed by Secretary Cagnac because they had a very difficult job, yung patience nila, na they contacted the families for over 1 year. This is 428 days. We have to end the war in Gaza first. So we got it, and it was very quick.
Southeast Asian cities are making headlines for their severe air pollution. And according to air monitoring organization IQ Air, Ho Chi Minh City ranked as the second most polluted city globally today, with Phnom Penh in 4th place and Bangkok in 5th. In Bangkok, thick smog blanketed the skyline, leaving outdoor workers struggling to cope. City authorities closed around 300 schools this week due to hazardous air quality.
The air is so bad. When there's a lot of dust, it affects me directly. And since I have a daughter, it greatly impacts her health. Instead of her going out to play, the dust prevents her from doing so. The pollution and everything, other contributing factors, and breathing the air in leads to allergies. It's really not okay for me or the people around me. I'd like the relevant agencies to do more to manage and deal with the dust because it happens every year, it keeps coming back, and it's getting worse each time. They should take more action, not just announce high dust levels and close schools. There needs to be more than that.
In Ho Chi Minh City, IQ Air reported fine particle matter levels 11 times higher than the World Health Organization's safety threshold. Just weeks earlier, Hanoi was ranked the most polluted city globally, prompting health warnings and recommendations for residents to wear masks and eye protection. Governments across Southeast Asia are pushing for long-term solutions, such as carbon taxes and the promotion of electric vehicles to combat this recurring issue. The battle against air pollution continues as authorities balance short-term measures with sustainable long-term strategies. Southern California is facing yet another wave of wildfires with at least 8 blazes currently burning, and firefighters are making progress on the Hughes Fire, located 45 miles north of Los Angeles, but not before it scorched over 10,000 acres and forced tens of thousands to flee their homes. The youth fire has already consumed over 10,000 acres of North Los Angeles, forcing tens of thousands to evacuate. The Palisades and Eaton fires have been particularly devastating, claiming 28 lives and destroying thousands of homes and businesses.
Our hopes tonight are that we are able to make further progress on the fire. Hopefully the winds will subside, our relative humidities will increase, giving us the upper hand on the fire. Typically, this is when we make the most progress on the fire, allowing us to go into the next operational period ahead of where we started. We're not dealing with a large population and a large amount of residential homes, as we saw with those two fires. Out here, it's more sparsely populated. However, out here, we are dealing with high winds, which we also saw with the other fires, along with thick fuel bed, very receptive fuel bed, and steep topography again.
Firefighters are battling blazes in multiple locations, including a new wildfire near Ventura County Farms and another that threatened the Bel Air community overnight. In Altadena, residents remain traumatized by the recent Eaton fire, where late evacuation warnings contributed to significant loss of life. Meteorological conditions remain critical. Strong winds continue to spread flames, while incoming rain brings the additional risk of potentially deadly mudslides. Red flag warnings are in effect tonight, signaling continued extreme fire danger. Residents are urged to stay informed, follow evacuation orders immediately, and prepare for emergency situations. Emergency services remain on high alert as the wildfire crisis continues to unfold. Record high winds from Storm Yoan battered Ireland and Northern Ireland today, leaving 560,000 homes and businesses without power and forcing the cancellation of hundreds of flights and the closure of schools and public transport. Officials had warned the storm was said to be one of the most dangerous, and they faced and told people to stay indoors. The Irish Weather Agency, Met Arian, said a gust of 182 kilometers per hour overnight at Mace Head in County Galway provisionally broke an 80-year record. ESB Networks, which provides energy for the whole of Ireland, said unprecedented damage to its network had led to power outages affecting 560,000 homes, farms, and businesses. It expected significant outages as the storm tracks northwards. The power company said ahead of the storm that it could take up to 9 days to restore power for some customers. More than 110 scheduled departures and 110 arrivals at Dublin Airport were cancelled, the airport said, adding that further cancellations and delays were possible. All schools in Ireland and Northern Ireland were closed on Friday, and public transport will not run in Ireland while a red wind warning remains in place. The red warning, the highest alert level, was in place for the entire country for the first time since Storm Ophelia in 2017, which killed 3 people. It's due to be lifted for most of Ireland at 1100 GMT and in British-ruled Northern Ireland at 1400. A red warning is also in place for southwestern and central areas of Scotland from 1000 until 1700. Or from 10 o'clock until 1700, according to the UK Met Office, warning people to expect flying debris, resulting in danger to life, damage to buildings with roofs blown off, and the closure of roads and bridges. Dozens of flights from airports at Edinburgh and Glasgow were cancelled, and National Rail advised people living across Scotland and parts of northern England not to travel today. And we're turning now to how the Trump presidency, President Trump is proposing significant tariffs on foreign goods, aiming to boost U.S. manufacturing and rebalance trade with countries like China. Now, President Trump and his team are pushing plans to impose double-digit tariffs on foreign goods, which would make imports more expensive and potentially less appealing to American consumers. But critics warn that retaliatory tariffs could backfire, reducing demand for American-made products and ultimately hurting U.S. workers. Speaking virtually to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, Trump delivered a direct message to world leaders.
But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA.
The statement sparked concerns with the head of the World Trade Organization warning that trade wars could have catastrophic effects, leading to double-digit global GDP losses on par with the economic turmoil of the 1930s.
If we have tit-for-tat retaliation, whether it's 25%, tariff 60%, and we go to where we were in the 1930s, we're going to see double-digit global GDP losses. Double-digit. That's catastrophic. Everyone will pay. Everyone. And the poor countries will pay even more. Second, if we just do not quite tit for tat, but even a version of that, let's say we break into two trading blocks and, you know, we're not trading across the world, and we layer in trade policy uncertainty. We've done that work too. We're going to lose 6.4% of real global GDP in the longer term. That's like losing the economy of Japan and Korea combined.
Meanwhile, Trump also addressed efforts to end the war in Ukraine, stating that negotiations are in progress but suggested Moscow must take the next step.
One thing very important, I really would like to be able to meet with President Putin soon and get that war ended. And that's not from the standpoint of economy or anything else. It's from the standpoint of millions of lives are being wasted. I will tell you that President Putin really liked the idea of cutting way back on nuclear. And I think the rest of the world, we would have gotten them to follow. And China would have come along too. China also liked it.
Back home, a federal judge in Washington state temporarily blocked Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship, calling it blatantly unconstitutional.
This is a nationwide order, essentially directs the United States government to take no further action in implementing the president's unconstitutional order. Well, as we laid out today, so we moved for a temporary restraining order, which has a nationwide impact. The next step will be a preliminary injunction, which will allow for more thorough briefing. The TRO that was issued today has a 14-day effective date. So for 14 days, the United States government can take no further action implementing or enforcing this order. Well, we will be back in court, as will many other people across the country.
Now, Trump responded, promising to appeal.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. President, a U.S. judge temporarily blocks the birthright citizenship order. Do you have any reaction?
No, obviously we'll appeal it. They put it before a certain judge in Seattle, I guess, right? And there's no surprises with that judge.
In other news, President Trump signed an executive order to declassify files related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. Trump said the move will finally give Americans access to the truth after decades of secrecy. Administration officials have been directed to develop a plan to release the files within 15 days for JFK and 45 days for the other two cases. Russian President Vladimir Putin has made clear he wants to restart nuclear arms cuts talks as soon as possible. The Kremlin said this today in response to comments made by U.S. President Donald Trump. Now, Trump said on Thursday he wanted to work towards cutting nuclear arms, adding that he thought Russia and China might support during their own weapons capabilities. Now, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the ball was in Washington's court.
Я хочу вам напомнить в этой связи заявление президента Путина, что Россия считает необходимым как можно скорее возобновить разоруженческие переговоры, тем более что существенно подорвана договорно-правовая база в сфере контроля над вооружениями, причем не по вине Российской Федерации. Соединенные Штаты собственно, завершили свое участие и подорвали фактически существование этой договорно-правовой базы. Поэтому есть о чем говорить, нужно говорить. Время во многом упущено, и здесь, собственно, мы и ранее говорили о такой заинтересованности, поэтому тут мяч на стороне американцев, которые прекратили все контакты, все субстантивные контакты с нашей страной.
Meanwhile, in a significant move, Donald Trump's second term seems to be starting on a positive note for China, and so far he hasn't followed through on his threat to impose steep tariffs on the country. Speaking at an economic forum in Davos, he even mentioned that the U.S. and China could have a recovery good relationship, and there's talk he might visit Beijing in the coming months.
He called me, but I see it very good. I think that we're going to have a very good relationship, but we always had a great relationship, I would say, and we look forward to doing very well with China and getting along with China. Hopefully China can help us stop the war with, in particular, Russia, Ukraine. They have a great deal of power over that situation.
In an interview with Fox News, Trump said he would rather not impose tariffs on China, despite campaign promises to hit the country with hefty import duties.
It went fine. It was a good, friendly conversation. I had a great relationship with him prior to COVID. I had a very good relationship with him. I thought it was a very good conversation. We've had other communication before that. They are a very ambitious country. He's a very ambitious man. He's a man that was, I don't want to be naive and say my friend, but he was like my friend. We had a very good relationship. Now, I put tariffs on China. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars, and Biden was unable to end them because it was so much money you couldn't do it in terms of the budget. He wanted to end them. He did everything he could to end them. He couldn't get it done. But we have one very big power over China, and that's tariffs. And they don't want them, and I'd rather not have to use it. But it's a tremendous power over China. China gets a lot of its money from the United States. They use that money to build a military. Isn't it crazy?
Trump had previously announced that a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports could begin on February 1, with a possibility of levies as high as 60%, a key point in his campaign rhetoric. Meanwhile, Beijing has called for the U.S. and China to resolve their differences through dialogue and consultation, highlighting the importance of diplomatic solutions.
We have stated our position on this issue many times. China-U.S. economic and trade cooperation is mutually beneficial and a win-win situation. We believe that if there are differences and frictions between the two sides, they should be resolved through dialogue and negotiations. There are no winners in trade wars and tariff wars. It's not in the interests of either side, nor good for the world.
Anything is possible with the Trump administration, but at the moment I think it's actually a good thing that they're going after 10%. To kind of set the stage of, we are serious, but we also want to work something out. I think if the U.S. does not necessarily get what it needs, you will start to see a ratcheting up of tariffs until it becomes too painful, and then something is done to take those tariffs away. So 10% won't really lead to anything outside, any supply chains moving outside of China, partly because China has already done a lot of de-risking in the last 6-7 years because of the trade war. So Chinese supply chains are actually much more resilient than American supply chains at this point. If it goes above 10%, you will see more companies either shift further into Southeast Asia particularly, or drive in automation and robotics to kind of cut costs as quickly as possible.
In a forceful address to international business and political leaders, President Trump issued direct demands and warnings about global economic policy. He called on OPEC to reduce oil prices and urged world governments to lower interest rates.
America is back and open for business.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday addressed the global leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, promising his second term will forego free market norms inside the U.S. and out.
I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down, which, frankly, I'm surprised they didn't do before the election. That didn't show a lot of love.
In his speech, broadcast from Washington, D.C., Trump demanded lower oil prices and that interest rates drop worldwide.
With oil prices going down, I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately, and likewise, they should be dropping all over the world. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. Right now, the price is high enough that war will continue. You got to bring down the oil price. You got to end that war. They should have done it long ago. They're very responsible, actually, to a certain extent, for what's taking place. Millions of lives are being lost.
Trump listed the rapid-fire changes he had made since his swearing in that had upended U.S. government policies on diversity, climate change, and immigration. Some attendees, including Secretary General of Amnesty International Agnes Callamard, were critical of Trump's America First agenda.
Il n'a pas de vision pour le reste du monde.
He doesn't have a vision for the rest of the world. He has a very strong American vision, and I understand why Americans vote for him. It's a vision of America first, the workers first, the American banks first, the American investments first, etc.
D'abord, etc., etc. Mais à l'échelle planétaire.
But on a global scale, all of this won't allow stability. It will only reinforce inequalities and insecurity. So the complete lack of vision for the rest of the world is shocking.
Absence complète de vision pour le reste du monde.
If you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff.
I think the first play for Trump is, I think there's it's undeniable that the United States shoulders much of the expense of everything in the world. I think Trump has kind of campaigned on that. I think he goes back to that, whether it be NATO, Ukraine, etc. I think this is just more of a, let's get people to the table to talk about how unfair all the rest of the world's problems are in the United States and our economy. So I don't necessarily know if we go through that at this point. I mean, Europe's in worse shape than we are. So I think economically, tariffs are going to not help them for certain. But I'm not sure if we get those. Obviously, tariffs, there's some trade-offs with currencies, but I think this is really more of an opening move to get people back to the table to talk about let's look at dividing some of these expenses more fairly.
Some of Trump's harshest criticism was reserved for traditional U.S. allies, Canada and the European Union, who he threatened again with new tariffs, while berating them for allowing trade surpluses with the United States.
President Trump said that he wants to usher in a golden age for the United States. That will require more steel and aluminum, more critical minerals, more reliable and affordable energy, more of everything to run the U.S. economy full steam ahead. Canada has all those resources, and we stand at the ready to work with the United States to create a booming and secure North American economy. The alternative for them would be more resources from Russia, China, or Venezuela. Canada is a safe, secure, and reliable partner in an uncertain world.
But one thing we're going to be demanding is we're going to be demanding respect from other nations. Canada, we have a tremendous deficit with Canada. We're not going to have that anymore. We can't do it. I don't know if it's good for them. As you probably know, I say you can always become a state. And if you're a state, we won't have a deficit. We won't have to tariff you, et cetera, et cetera. But Canada has been very tough to deal with over the years. And it's not fair that we should have a $200 billion or $250 billion deficit. We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
Yes, I think part of that with those two neighbors, I think it's got more to do with immigration. Is hey, you guys need to help us out a little bit. Immigration at the U.S. border starts at Canada and starts at Mexico to make sure it doesn't get there. And I think that's basically what the idea is. We certainly don't want to have tariffs, but let's sit down at the table and talk about what you're going to do to stop the immigration flow. We're trying to take care of our borders, but if you don't do anything on your end, it's not going to really help us that much. I think that's really the case in point. Is I think he's using these tariffs as a way to get people back to the table to deal with some things that he thinks are unfair. Whether we get tariffs or not from Canada, Mexico, I certainly don't think we're going to get 25%. Maybe there's a little bit, but I think it's more of a matter of getting them to the table to talk about how they can help us stop the flow of illegal immigration into the United States.
Since taking office, Trump has withdrawn the United States from the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Agreement.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back.
Sabay-sabay tayong maghalakhakan ngayong linggo with the one and only stand-up comedian, Alex Calleja. Higit isang dekada na ngang tumatak ang mga habe niyang punchline. Ako, pero sa likod ng mga ngiti niya on stage ay ang lungkot pala ng kanyang pinagdaanan bago niya maabot ang kasikatan na mayroon siya ngayon. Nagtinda ng mga lutong ulam nung siya'y call center agent para may ekstrang kita, tumira sa container van na walang sariling CR. Naku, paanong binago ng komedya ang buhay ni Alex Calleja? Laughter and konting tears tayo ngayong linggo, 6 p.m. dito lang sa Corina Interviews sa NET25.
Sa NET25.
Travelers clutching large suitcases and gifts thronged Shanghai Hongqiao Railway Station today, with many bubbling with excitement as they join millions of Chinese returning to their hometowns to celebrate the Lunar New Year with family amid a sluggish economy.
Yes, I do have some concerns, because every year the impact from the economic environment is that it's harder and harder to earn money. In terms of the impact on my work, it's okay. I'm worried, but our boss, our air conditioning industry is still okay. There are some impacts, but they're not that big. No, I'm very happy that I'm going home. Super happy and excited.
Hundreds of millions of Chinese crisscross the country during the Lunar New Year holidays each year to reunite with families back in their hometowns or for sightseeing during an extended period, making it the world's largest annual human migration. China's Transport Ministry estimates a total of 9 billion trips will be made across the country during the 40-day travel period around the festival, up from 8.4 billion trips recorded during the same period last year. Now, this year's Lunar New Year travel rush kicked off on Tuesday and will last for 40 days, concluding on February 22. The official Spring Festival holidays, as the New Year celebrations are known in China, will run from January 28 to February 4. Meta has showcased its new Orion augmented reality glasses on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, those at the annual meeting in the Swiss ski resort who were curious of the new glasses could attend demonstrations of a prototype of the high-tech glasses, which use holographic projection to allow users to see graphics projected through transparent lenses into their field of view. Meta chief Mark Zuckerberg has called the glasses the most advanced glasses the world has ever seen. He also said they offer a glimpse of the future in which smart glasses will replace smartphones as the main mode of communication. Throughout the annual business elite meeting, Meta has had a pavilion on the main promenade showcasing various kinds of tech wearables.
What we've done with input with these glasses, part of it is eye tracking. So the eye tracking gaze acts as a cursor, like a mouse cursor. And then the second thing is clicking. And so we have a neural interface band, which I'm wearing, that reads the signals from your brain to your muscles and predicts which movement you're doing, which allows you to do discrete clicks without having to hold your hands up in front of you when you're out and about, as well as do other gestures to control the UI.
In what order?
Now, when we talk about augmented reality, we mean that you're looking at the physical world, and we're overlaying digital content on top of it. It allows for things like having a virtual TV on the wall, walking down the street and having arrows overlaid on the street where you're supposed to make a turn instead of having to look at a screen, virtual picture frames, virtual art, and much more.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Good night.